You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans! Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am Jacob Valk, and you're not going to get the trifecta today, know this day in sports history, because of a very, very sad death in the world of sports. Kaline passed away just as I was posting yesterday's show at the age of 85. It's weird. When I was doing the Detroit Tigers Mount Rushmore, which you can hear in the Wayne Stewart interview that I did on April Fool's Day. It was actually done March 31st, but it was posted on April Fool's Day. Kaline was second. The Mount Rushmore was Ty Cobb, Kaline, Charlie Gehringer, and Mickey Loich. And I didn't go that in-depth on Kaline because, well, did you really need me to? Do I really need to justify Kaline being the second best Detroit Tiger of all time? But since he passed, we have to reflect on his career and how great it was. This was a kid who came from an incredibly poor family, and he developed osteomyelitis as an 8-year-old. He was permanently affected by that. In fact, later in his career, he couldn't play the outfield. He had to switch to first base and DH. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Kaline signed straight out of high school. Didn't go to college. Didn't play a single game of minor league baseball. His whole career. Never played a single game of minor league baseball. He was a bonus baby. Was given $35,000 to sign with the Tigers. And boy, oh boy, did he make that decision look good. In 1953, in 28 at-bats, he hit .250, 1 homer, 2 RBIs. Not too bad for an 18-year-old. The year after that, he hit .276, with 4 homers and 43 RBIs. He showed that he belonged really, really quickly. Interesting trivia question for you. Did Kaline wear the number 6 his whole MLB career? The answer is no. He came up with 25. He wore 25 his rookie year, and then in 54 he switched to 6. He was given that number by Pat Mullen. So that's an interesting piece of baseball trivia there. 1955 was when Kaline really burst onto the scene as a star. He won his only batting title by hitting .340, hit 27 homers to go with 102 RBIs, and made the first of what would be 18 All-Star teams. 18 All-Star teams. That is insane. In 1957, Kaline won the first of his 10 Gold Gloves. He would go on to win 10 Gold Gloves in 11 seasons. I don't know how he didn't win a Gold Glove in 1960. I would love to know who won over him. In fact, I'm pretty sure that I can look right now, but it doesn't take away too much from his legacy. What's the difference between 10 Gold Gloves and 11 Gold Gloves? Not much. Oh, Jim Landis? Jim Landis won the Gold Glove that year over Al Kaline. In 60, Kaline was playing center field for the Tigers. Landis was playing center field for the White Sox. Jim Landis? Look, all due respect to Landis. Really good fielder, good player. Jim Landis does not deserve a Gold Glove over Al Kaline. Oh, come on. Look at me, I'm getting worked up over the 1960 Gold Glove winners. Oh, man. Well, it's one of those things that just make you shake your head. It was funny, my buddy Mark was talking to me about the 2003 All-Star game, and he pulled out some weird names that were All-Stars, like Lance Carter, Carl Everett, and Randy Wolf. You just shake your head. How are those guys All-Stars? I mean, Lance Carter used to kill the Yankees, and Carl Everett and Randy Wolf were really good players once upon a time, but All-Stars? They don't deserve to be All-Stars. 1961. When I say 61, what do you think of? You think of the Yankees. You think of Maris and Mantle. Well, interestingly enough, the Tigers won 101 games that year. They actually came, I don't know if close is the right word. They finished 8 games behind the Yankees, but they were nipping at the Yankees' heels all throughout the year. And while guys like Norm Cash and Rocky Colavito were stealing the headlines for Tigers hitters, and Frank Larry, who won 23 games that year, was the ace of that staff, Al Kaline was hitting .324 with 19 homers and 82 RBIs. He was second on the team in average, behind only Norm Cash. Norm Cash is going to be a fun guy to do this day in sports history on. It's really a shame how much he's been lost to history. He was one of the most feared sluggers of his era. Those Tigers teams, man, those were good teams. Not great teams, but good teams. They just had the misfortune of playing behind the Yankees. The thing with Kaline is he always suffered these fluky injuries. I don't know if it had to do with his osteomyelitis or not, but Kaline never played a full season. Now, he came close early in his career, but as he reached the prime of his career, he was getting hurt a lot. This is a guy who was just a magnet for the baseball, missed a bunch of games because he was hit by a pitch. He hurt his collarbone making a catch on an Elston Howard fly ball. And in 1964, his osteomyelitis flared up again. His batting average plummeted to .293 from where it was before, .312. 63, Kaline, 27 homers, 101 RBIs. The year after that, in one more game, mind you, 17 homers and 68 RBIs. Admittedly, I've never looked at Al Kaline's foot, but Milton Gross, a sports writer, had this to say about it. The pinky and middle finger don't touch the ground. The fourth toe is stretched. The second and third are shortened. The first and third toes overlap the second, and the fourth is beginning to overlap the big toe, which has begun to bend to the left. I don't know if you can paint that picture in your head, but the moral of the story is Kaline's foot was weird. You remember Shaquille O'Neal a while ago had that thing with his foot and he had a pedicure and we were all lamenting the poor woman who had to give him that pedicure? Yeah, that's nothing compared to Kaline. And you know what the fix was? Corrective shoes. He went to a surgeon and he said, I'm not going to perform surgery on you. I'm just going to give you corrective shoes. And it worked. 1966, Kaline hit 29 homers and 88 RBIs. And in 1967, Kaline hit 308 with 25 homers and 78 RBIs. And in 1968, the Tigers won a World Series, Kaline's only World Series, and he hit 379 in that series with 2 homers and 8 RBIs. 69 was the last year of his power. He hit 272 with 21 homers and 69 RBIs. But after that, he never hit 20 homers again. He actually never hit 30 home runs and retired with 399 home runs. Just an interesting piece of trivia there. But his average stayed high. He made an all-star team in 71 by hitting 294. 72, he hit 313. And in 74, he made his last all-star team. He hit 262 with 13 homers and 64 RBIs. He was an all-star because everyone knew that was going to be his last year. He retired after getting his 3,000th hit. He would finish with 3,007 of them and would go into the Hall of Fame in 1980 on the first ballot. Pop quiz. Who did he hit his 3,000th hit off of? Dave McNally, former Baltimore Oriole. While Kaline's hits get the bulk of the headlines, this guy was probably the second best fielding outfielder of all time. The best was Roberto Clemente. The second best was Kaline. He finished with a career .987 fielding percentage. He was beloved in the city of Detroit, was very active there, was a color commentator there for 27 years. And then he transitioned to the front office, and he actually died as a member of the Tigers front office. He was Mr. Tiger. There's no question. Tony the Tiger has nothing on him. All told, he spent 67 years with the Tigers. 22 of them as a player. Would be the best Tiger in history if not for the fact that Ty Cobb played for him. And is without question one of the best players in baseball history. I don't know where you'd put him exactly, but he's got to be on your list somewhere. May he rest in peace. Alright, it is time for numbers 21 to 24 on my 2020 NFL Draft Big Board. They are Patrick Queen, Ross Blacklock, AJ Epineza, and Brandon Ayuk. Queen is a little bit of a one-hit wonder. Kind of a theme with LSU this year. When Devin White went to the pros, no one expected Queen to step up and be one of the best players on defense for him, but he did. He showed his insane speed. He flies around the field, insanely athletic, good tackler. The thing that you don't like about him is he's super raw. Is he a plug-and-play guy? Not unless you're willing to permit a lot of mistakes early on. There are some teams where he'll get the luxury of being allowed to work through his mistakes, but if he gets drafted by a team that's looking to make a big playoff push, Queen isn't going to be given a lot of leeway. He reminds me a lot of Deion Jones. I know it's lazy to compare him to someone from the same school, but they were both really raw. They both have similar size coming out of college. While Deion Jones, to me, was a second-round talent, Queen is a lot faster, a lot more athletic. The NFL is transitioning to a fast man's game, and I think Queen has the talent to turn into a really, really good linebacker in this league. He just needs the opportunity to work through his mistakes. That's it. If not for his injury concerns, Ross Blacklock would be probably a top 10 prospect in this draft. But he tore his Achilles in 2018. He has huge durability issues. That's a red flag for a lot of teams, but the talent is there. He reminds me a lot of Daquan Bowers. I remember the 2011 draft. I thought Daquan Bowers was one of the best players in that draft. I was stunned when he slipped to the second round. I remember wanting the Jets to take him. Now, I'm happy with what I got from Muhammad Wilkerson for the most part. Yeah, he had a bad end to his career with the Jets, but for a period of time, he was one of the best defensive ends in the league. But Bowers would have been a top 5 prospect in that draft if he didn't have injury concerns. Same thing with Blacklock. Now, Blacklock isn't as talented as Bowers was at Clemson. The thing with him is he likes to use his size a lot, and that means that offensive linemen are able to get under him, push him up, and he just can't overpower them like that. He needs to get lower. He needs to work on leverage. He needs to work on angles. But Blacklock is insanely talented. Good athlete, strong hands, good feet, has all the talent in the world. If you watched him play at TCU, you saw it. But the injury concerns are real. A.J. Epineza needs to be drafted by a 3-4 team. If he is drafted by a team that plays a 4-3 defense, he will bust. He's not like Von Miller. I remember Von Miller out of Texas A&M. There were a lot of people that were concerned about how he'd do with the Broncos because they played a 4-3. There were a lot of people that thought that Miller would bust. But, as we all know, Von Miller became, well, Von Miller, and may be a Hall of Famer at some point. Epineza does not have the talent of a Von Miller. I don't like how he uses his hips. He tries to use his hands a lot to get off the block and bull rush the quarterback. I'd like him to use his strength a little bit more. And he is strong. He's a really strong guy. I understand that he didn't show it at the combine, but the tape doesn't lie. If you watched him at Iowa, you saw how strong he was. He has really good instincts, smart guy, has all the talent in the world. Yeah, there's some risk there, but I think Ebenezer is going to be a really good player in this league for a long time. Brandon Ayuk, it just came out, needs core muscle surgery. But we're living in a world where that really doesn't scare teams off you that much. Tua Tagovailoa is going to be a top 5 draft pick. Ross Blacklock is going to be a first rounder. They both have injury concerns. And Brandon Ayuk was one of the biggest risers of the pre-draft process. I remember he was a guy who people thought could fall to the 3rd round and he'd be one of the steals of the draft. Now he's a first-round talent. And let me tell you, he deserves it. There is no receiver in this draft that I trust more on wide receiver screens than Ayuk. He is incredibly fast. He's Johnny Lamb Jones fast, if you remember him for the Jets. I guess the best modern comparison I could use would be Tyreek Hill. That's how fast he is. He's not the route runner that Hill is, but Ayuk just has speed that you can't teach. He can be a great deep threat in this league, similar to what Robbie Anderson was for the Jets. Again, he's not a great route runner. That will hurt him a little bit. He needs to be used correctly. But there's nothing stopping him from being a really good player in this league. Will he ever be great? That's tough. He's got to be drafted in the right system. The Cardinals don't need any more wide receivers, but he'd be great with the Cardinals. That's the type of system he needs. Alright, it's time for another Mount Rushmore. If you've been keeping score, you know that I'm on the Kansas City Royals. And this one was really tough. I know that I usually go by total body of work, and that is the best way to do these Mount Rushmores. But when you look at the Royals, it's just tough. They have a lot of guys that are close together. Amos Otis, Mike Sweeney, Frank White, Paul Splittorff, Kevin Apier, Brett Saberhagen. I just couldn't go by total body of work. I had to go by dominance. I think that's the only fair way to do it with the Royals. And with that in mind, these are all guys that played in the 1980s when the Royals were the most successful. As we all know, they won the 85 World Series, beat the Cardinals in 7 games. Thank you, Don Denkinger. But the correct Mount Rushmore is George Brett, Frank White, Brett Saberhagen, and Dan Quisenberry. Brett, you don't need me to tell you about. Over 3,000 hits. Celebrated his 3,000th hit by getting picked off at first base. Is without question one of the best third basemen of all time. And is a beloved figure in Kansas City. Frank White is one of the best fielding second basemen of all time. He's on par with Bill Mazeroski, 8-time Gold Glover, 5-time All-Star, and one of only 2 Royals, Brett being the other one, to have over 2,000 hits with the team. Brett Saberhagen was the ace of the 85 Royals, which is saying something because that was his second year. He finished 20-6 that year with a 2.87 ERA. And in 1989, he was even better. That was when he won his Cy Young. 23-6 with a 2.16 ERA in 12 complete games. pitched over 260 innings. You're not going to see that anymore. Quisenberry was the closer for the 85 team, and in the early to mid-80s, there was no closer better than Quisenberry. From 1980 to 1985, he led the league in saves 5 times. Interestingly enough, he does not lead the Royals in saves. It's Jeff Montgomery. Very underrated closer. I've heard some people say that Jeff Montgomery should be in the Hall of Fame. I wouldn't go that far, but Montgomery was a really good closer. Alright, short show today. It's a shame. This would have been a big baseball and Stanley Cup playoffs show if sports wasn't on hiatus. But that's the way the cookie crumbles, I guess. It seems like there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I feel like we've reached sort of the plateau of this. I think we're gonna start seeing a return to normalcy soon. I don't know why I think that. It's just a feeling I have. Until tomorrow, I am Jacob Valk saying that I bleed Yankee blue, and when I die, I'm going to that big Yankee in the sky.